All right, guys. Well, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. How's everything going today? I know you guys just had an exciting lunch.
Yeah, it's been going well. Yeah.
So I thought we could start off by just talking about a mutual connection we have with Robert Steinbauer. And I know he's my ethics prof right now and a past professor of yours. And I just kind of wanted to launch into how you guys are connected to education through that. So I know he said that you guys are past students of his and maybe even might have struggled a little bit in some of his classes in some aspects. But now you guys are using VR to help people learn in different ways and in some ways that people had never even tried it before, mainly tactile. So what are some of the ways that you guys have realized people learn better with VR, maybe have some more troubles with, or just some kind of new revelations along with that as you guys have been figuring it out?
Yeah, I guess I can start with the story of Robert and bring it kind of full circle. Then
Sure thing.
Pass it over to Drew to talk about the VR side. So I had Robert as a professor in my third year of university, and that is the same year that I joined the incubator on campus and kind of got really excited about virtual reality and entrepreneurship. And in doing so, kind of stopped going to a lot of Robert's classes, unfortunately. It's an ethics class, so that's very bad. But I was just working away on the business, and funny enough, at the exact same time that I was taking his class, I was also taking his wife, Shauna Chen's class for entrepreneurship.
Right.
And because I was an entrepreneur, she loved me in the class, and I even did another work study class with her afterwards. And so, I had 80s or 90s in her class, and I ended up failing Robert's, unfortunately. I did go back to another professor and finally pass the course after that. But it was a funny full circle that now we're creating virtual reality simulations for Robert. But I'll pass over to Drew to talk about the benefits of VR.
Yeah, for sure. So, you mentioned the word tactile, which when I was learning about that in HR classes back in the day, there's audio, visual, and tactile learners, it clicked with me right away that repetition of doing the action is going to be better than trying to recite something you listened to or watched. So I always stem it back to the first time I ever tried virtual reality. I put the headset on, I grew up playing sports and video games, and they both of them lost interest as I got to university. But putting the headset on for the first time was the perfect combination of sports and video games in one environment, and I felt so involved and inside what was going on. We just knew we had to do something with this technology.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember what game it was?
It was Space Pirate Trainers. I was
Wow.
I was shooting robots out of the air. We had these whips out. You're pointing them, grabbing, throwing things at the ground. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Just to bring it back to kind of education in that ethics class, I know you guys have actually worked with him now, and I had the pleasure of doing one of your simulations
Amazing.
in my class. And I can say it definitely added an element of depth. It was the sexual harassment in the workplace one. And I think it definitely had a place in that class, and I can understand why he would want to work with you guys in it. I really appreciate it. I kind of, for people who hadn't been in an office environment or any of those kind of situations, because luckily now they're few and far between, but it was obviously very exaggerated but it was good. It allowed people to maybe have prior experience where they would have never ever experienced something like that other than reading through a situation in a textbook. And back to the tactile learning part of things, I know, Evan, you're about to go on your tour across Canada and kind of explore more VR that way. How do you think that's going to go, and just showing maybe younger kids and helping them learn that way? Because I know if I was a younger kid and I had a VR set, maybe, I could get more interest in science that way, and that could change their trajectory in any way. How do you aim to kind of fix all that?
Yeah, definitely excited to get some students in there, but I think a lot of students understand the benefits of virtual reality, or they've heard about virtual reality, so they're at least excited about it in an entertainment sense. Mm-hmm. I'm most excited because we see right now we're doing Zoom calls and we can show people all kinds of videos, and if we find the right people, they're interested in VR. But when we actually go to a conference or an event and we can put a professor into a headset, that's when they get so excited and they're like, I can see how, even though this is maybe a firefighting simulation, I can see how this will fit into my health class or into my English class or whatever it is. So really putting the headset onto people's heads so they can really experience that is what this tour is going to allow us to do across Canada and into the States. So just excited to get educators in there and get their ideas going and see what ideas come from it and what we end up building together.
And what are some of the more interesting kind of softwares and everything you've built for the education sphere in that regard?
So, the two main areas that we've been able to focus in, which stemmed out of colleges needing hands-on training at home for students, right? Mm-hmm. Because, everyone's learning from a PowerPoint or a Zoom call. Police officers and firefighters were the two really important ones that we needed to focus on with the schools we were working with. So from a police standpoint, crime scene investigations, going in and collecting evidence, traffic accidents, what do you do when two cars run into each other, who's at fault? Mm-hmm. And then lastly was de-escalation of conflict scenarios. So, you get a 911 call, you're approaching an apartment or a house, and you need to, de-escalate that without the use of force or weapons, which has been a very hot topic in the news recently.
Absolutely, yeah.
From the firefighting perspective, how to don your self-contained breathing apparatus, or the SCBA for short, hazardous material spills, which again is really relevant with all the tanker spills down in the States. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, and what we're most proud of, is our search and rescue, where you're actually going in to save victims from a burning house. Originally we built it as a one-player experience. Now we have it networked for 4 firefighters to work as a team with their commander outside the house, being able to do exactly what they would do on a live fire site.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. So what kind of feedback do you get when the firefighters go through? They're like, oh, this is like great training. We've realized now they're more prepared for these kind of scenarios.
Yeah. So we always say that when we're designing a sim, that we are the experts in VR. We're not the content experts in the particular field we're building it for. So we work directly with the teachers to understand the learning outcomes they're trying to teach, mm-hmm. and make sure that those are driven within the simulation itself. So, for example, that search and rescue simulation, we implemented it at Conestoga with one of their classes. Mm-hmm. They had gone through it 3 times a month for the entire semester. They saw not only higher grades on their test scores, but the most people graduating the class out of any of the classes they've taught in the last 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are impressive statistics. That must really boost you guys up and make you want to keep doing this.
Yeah, as we keep going, you never really know how much you're impacting it until you get the feedback from the people, because you're in it every day, right? So you see incremental improvements, but mm-hmm. then when you hear that long-term jump from 6 months of how well it's impacting the students, it's all worth it.
Yeah. And a really tangible story of that as well is we had a girl go in, and it was one of her first times going into the search and rescue experience in VR, and she went into the basement, and as a firefighter, when you see a victim, you have to have a partner to rescue that victim, but there was 4 victims in the basement in this scenario that we had created, and so they can only rescue one, and she kind of panicked and was like, what do I do, and forgot what she does or what she should do in that scenario. And she forgot she was in the basement and thought she was in the garage. So she started searching for the door, couldn't find the door because she should have been looking for the stairs, and ran out of air, and they had to then rescue her from the building. And seeing that kind of impact, that somebody can experience that in a virtual world where they're completely safe versus even a live fire training exercise where it is real fire that could still be very dangerous. So mm-hmm. to have that experience and see somebody have that experience and learn from that and now be prepared for the real world is really impactful for us as well.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, because that scenario, who knows, it could have happened in real life, whereas now she'll learn and she knows.
Exactly.
Wow. And are you exploring any other avenues with emergency rescue or anything like that? Maybe ambulance?
Yeah,
we're
looking to expand both police and fire a bunch, and then as well 2 kind of areas that we're going down. One is on the paramedic side. Right now there's a lot of great medical simulations, so we'll probably stay away from that. But something that we've been hearing a lot is that there isn't that many ambulances available on the road. So to train somebody on what's in every door and every cabinet in there, mm-hmm. You can't take one off the road. So just recreating that so that mm-hmm. somebody can experience that is huge. And then number 2 is more of the emergency management side of things. So as somebody that's gets a call, or 911 has gotten a call that there's an emergency, how do you deploy the right people, the right paramedics, firefighters, police, and take care of that situation.
I think that's amazing. Wow. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to bring it back to when you guys first met and how this all started. Now, I know you guys met here at Brock University, and it was kind of through the link, or back then it was called BioLink. But when you were first starting out, what were some of your inspirations that brought you to VR in the first place and made you attracted to the genre?
I think Evan's story starts before mine, so let him hop into it first.
Yeah, so it started for me, came into BioLink, met Drew there, and the first inspiration technically was I wanted to start a t-shirt company. That was my big idea coming into the incubator on campus. I was like, okay, I need an idea to apply. So I was going to do this t-shirt company, walk in, and Drew was the BioLink ambassador, and he had a t-shirt press in the back and was already running this t-shirt company. And so I was like, okay, I need to come up with another idea. So I went home. I'm trying to think of other ideas. I had a list of a couple ideas that I was thinking about. And one of them was 360 videos, and that just came from YouTube. Like, I've always loved like learning on YouTube and watching different YouTubers. And in 2016, early 2016, there was a lot of YouTubers using 360 cameras to like try this new way of filming things. And so that kind of got me into that space and purchased one of those cameras just to like film, and that kind of grew into learning about virtual reality, and that's kind of, I guess, where Drew came in.
Yeah, so Evan knocks on my door one day. I'm just working a co-op, finally getting a little bit of money in my pocket, enjoying supporting entrepreneurs. And, he comes to me, and I knew he was playing around with a 360 video camera, and he's like, I want to buy this VR headset. And it's pretty expensive. Like, I'm looking for someone to go in on it. And like, I'll be honest, up until that point, I don't think I even knew the technology existed in real life other than seeing it in sci-fi films. And I said, video games that I can put my face into, that sounds pretty sweet. Let's try it out. So, we kind of pitched on the first headset that showed up, and then, it showed up. We had Evan's laptop that was able to run it. We rigged everything up sensors wise back then, got it all calibrated, and yeah, like I said, the second I put that headset on, I was absolutely hooked. I remember taking it off and looking at Evan, and we're about $3,000 in the hole at the time. We're like, hey, this is sick. How do we make our money back? This is not just going to be a toy. This is going to be a business in some degree. And that kind of led us to like, well, first off, if like we're excited about it, other people are going to be excited about it. And we started setting it up just outside of BioLink for anyone walking by to just try it out and get some feedback on, and then realized that there was an opportunity. Like, what if we charge a couple $100 for an afternoon? Schools will pay us as entertainment. Mm-hmm. That was a nice little piece. Some setups we did was like $5 a head. They would let us set up for free. Anyone come by that was willing to pay $5 would go through. And that was somewhat like we ended up getting busy for probably about 6 to 8 months doing that consistently. And we realized like, okay, to really scale this, to hire someone else to do it, like they have to be as passionate as us, as techie as us, and the cost is just going to be a diminishing return forever. And we're like, who's making the money here? And we were paying the game companies that we were licensing the games for a business model certificate. It was like $20 a month. So I'm like, these guys built it once and they're getting paid every single month, and they're not coming out like schlepping the gear out and putting kids through it and dealing with people throwing the headsets around and trying to figure out what they see in the headset while they're using controllers for the first time. We're like, okay, we got to get into software. Software is where it's at. Market research extended from there. Okay, where are the opportunities? And at the time, Walmart had just released some information about them training Black Friday sales reps on what it is like using virtual reality. Because no one can prep for the madness of Black Friday in the States until you've experienced it for the first time.
It's almost as crazy as a crime scene.
Exactly. Exactly. So we knew there was an opportunity for training and education. We were looking at enterprise, and we just kept kind of pushing in that area, changing the pitch deck, changing our conversations, talking to people of what we were capable of, and we kept telling people we could build software before we even had a software developer on the team.
You can till you make it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so what made you guys think that, like, yeah, we'll go ahead with this? Because I remember back in 2016, like, I saw the 360 videos too, like Casey Neistat was big on it, and I know a bunch of other YouTubers were big on it too, but it didn't seem to have much promise outside of, like, oh, this just seems like another internet, like, content creator trend. What made you guys think, like, oh, VR has much more promise than it currently has? Because back then, the whole metaverse and everything that's going on was nowhere in sight. So was it you saw how people were interested in it and wanted to go for it, or was it you guys saw kind of this whole metaverse thing coming? Visionaries.
It's a good question. I think on my end, like I had read Ready Player One, which if people listening don't know, it's all about like the future of virtual reality and everything. So yeah, read that. So had some inkling of interest in what that could become. But I think for me at least, it was really just like, I love this technology. Or I think a really good piece, I was like, I love this technology, but the first time I tried it, my dad also tried it with me. We went to like an arcade in Waterloo. And so he like picked it up really quickly, and even like the Wii he struggled with back in the day. So like seeing him pick it up so quickly, I was like, that's interesting that me at the time, I guess, whatever, 20 or whatever age I was then, picking it up, and my dad being like 60 and him picking it up, it was like, okay, like that's a big age difference just to pick it up and be interested in it right away. So it's like, I think there's legs here based off of that and just personal interest, I guess.
So what do you guys think the difference is between someone being able to pick up a video game and someone just going into VR? I think is it more similar to real life? Is that really the big difference?
I think so. Like it's still complicated with the controllers sometimes,
Yeah.
a little bit, but it's not just one controller that's in your hand. It's like, okay, these controllers are my hands. The buttons are kind of where you would think you'd interact with certain things. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like it's become an evolution of, you know, the standard get your kid a video console for Christmas, right? Was chatting with someone last week, and they were, you know, doing some research on it, that 1 in 5 people that own a console also own a VR headset. That's 20% of the market right there. And, you know, looking back to the last 2 Christmases that passed, you know, thinking about myself back in those days, like, you know, like the decision between Xbox and PlayStation was essentially, like, for my family, which one was slightly cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to get the same experience. You're going to have friends on both consoles, right? So the current Oculus or Meta Quest 2 headset is $600 after tax in Canada.
Wow.
Which is cheaper than the PlayStation 5 and the latest Xbox console.
That's wild.
So when parents are looking at that and their kids like, you know, I want one of these things, like a lot of them made the decision to buy them VR headsets for the first time. So they're getting introduced to video games on a crazy level in VR versus console. Yeah.
Wow. And is there more innovation going on in the space that you guys are seeing? I know you have a working relationship with some of these developers. Do you see it going like more compact, more mobile, maybe people even taking it on the go with them more? Because right now it's mostly confined to, like, you have to be in a safe space where it's defined. But is it, do you think, going to become even more accessible in the future?
Well, yeah, even looking at, like, I follow Meta's channel on Instagram, and he's posted some crazy stuff in the last couple of days.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
A partnership with BMW to, as a passenger in a car, keep the spatial awareness the same within the vehicle, even though you're moving. So basically any passenger can throw on a headset and play VR, you know, driving 100 kilometers an hour. We've seen people do it on flights that are like content creators where, you know, you're just screwing around in the headset while you're, you know, on your flight. So like,
so crazy.
like you're really not limited to any specific place. You just have to be smart about what game you're playing or what you're trying to experience, right?
Plus the past 2 weeks or month have been like really interesting because it's like over the past 5 years, like Meta or Facebook, HTC, and Pico, which is now owned by the same company that owns TikTok, they're kind of the 3 main competitors. There's some higher end headsets as well, but rumors are like in the air, and they have been for 5 years, but it seems like pretty true that June 5th, Apple will announce their headset. And then just last week or 2 weeks ago, Google had their keynote, and they announced that they're releasing a headset later this year in partnership with Samsung.
Wow, that's exciting.
That's like 3 of the biggest companies in the world being
Wow.
like, we're entering this market. So
It really makes you guys think like, oh yeah, even back then in 2016, we picked the right choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, and headsets too, like, you know, over time, right now the Meta Quest 2 is hovering around 1 pound. Apple's going to be dropping theirs, like I said, in a month or two. We'll see what the weight comes in at, but there's these new things called pancake lenses that they've designed to actually make the headsets much thinner on the front, so you're not like fully like heavy weighted down this way. They also usually will put any extra battery packs on the back to really balance it out, but every single thing, just like any technology, is getting smaller, lighter, and faster at an exponential rate every year that they make something new.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. To bring things back to the business side of things, I wanted to ask you guys about risks in business and how you've maybe mitigated some and what that looks like when they don't work out, and how you've maybe learned from some of your failures. Because I think that is probably the most important part of entrepreneurship and just starting your own business in general, is when something goes wrong, because it's not an if, it's a when. How do you pick yourself back up and learn more? So what are some of the things you guys have learned from those situations?
Oh man. I think I said this at a presentation about 2 years ago, and it still sticks with me, and it's kind of 2 parts, and they're both related to chickens for some reason. But like, don't count your chickens before they hatch. So don't think a contract's signed unless you literally have the money in your bank account. Don't start making decisions until that money is physically in your hands, because we've, you know, been bitten that way before, where you start like, well, yeah, you know, like I'm like 90% sure that they're going to pay us $100K, but we have nothing else on the go. So if that doesn't come through, then you're at zero, right? So like that can really screw you if you don't know that you have like a couple different things in the fire, which is the second point is like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely.
Right? So don't hedge one massive bet on one huge kind of player. Like as you're waiting for something major like that to happen, you can't lose sight of every other avenue that you were chasing, because you don't know if that's going to come through or not, and they may all come through, and you need to pay attention to all of them. You can't just drop everything and focus on one potential big client or one big investor. You have to talk to all of them.
Absolutely. So now do you guys keep kind of multiple streams open at all times and ways to tend to them all as you've grown?
We try.
It's probably like just a huge part of scaling up and increasing the business as it goes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's so many like mistakes and failures and things that we could dive into, but I think like one, just having the patience and knowing that like even if you make a mistake and you put all your eggs in one basket or you count your chickens before they hatch, like you're going to learn from that mistake, you're going to move forward. So just having patience that it takes time to learn from those things. And then one thing that I'm try to be very passionate about is just constantly learning. So I'm always listening to different podcasts, reading different books, listening to audiobooks, reading blog posts, everything, etc. So just there's all these people that have done it before us. So like you're not going to learn everything, but if you can try and learn from those people, even if it's just scrolling through TikTok and having some business focused people in your algorithm, you're going to learn and hopefully avoid some of those mistakes.
And what kind of places do you guys normally go to kind of learn and stay on the cutting edge of all of this?
For me, like Spotify and going to like My First Million, Tim Ferriss, those are kind of like two of the main ones that I go to for podcasts. There's an amazing app called Libby that is like an audiobook app, and if you have a library card, everything's free on there. So I use that, and it's basically every audiobook that you can think of is on, well, a lot of them other than new releases. So that's really good. And then YouTube and social media, I watch like Gary Vee and Alex Hormozy and like all of the typical people that are on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. And bringing it back to the education side of things. Now, I know personally growing up, I think I would have loved to have what you guys are doing around. If I had what you guys did in like middle school, I think I would have found like social studies infinitely more entertaining.
Agreed.
And I know particularly for younger boys growing up, the school system is mostly more tailored to just the way girls are at that age. Have you guys seen any impact or planned anything for how that might affect younger boys in a more tactile learning environment and just that side of things?
I haven't thought about it in that way specifically. I think though it leans into one of our like core 3 principles of our vision at XpertVR. So our vision at XpertVR is to build a collaborative future where education is accessible, engaging, and impactful for all. So that accessible piece, that comes into building tools if people have certain disabilities so that they can still access these simulations. But it also comes into like, you can learn in all kinds of different ways. So like finding that way that works for you. And as we're looking at the future, and there's like a lot of stuff happening around AI right now, we're looking at how can we integrate AI into our simulations. And I could see a future education system, and I've talked to some professors about this, where you start kindergarten and you have an AI that's at your like kindergarten grade level, and as you're learning, that AI is learning alongside you and learning the subjects that you're interested in. You can bounce ideas off of them and those sorts of things. So yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wild. I did not know that. I'll bring it back down to the practical. So back when we were renting headsets, even back like I want to say less than 3 years ago, we were working with a youth university here at the school, right? And any child's camp, whatever their focus is, they're always finding activities for the students to do. So like A, they're not bored, and B, they're potentially learning something at the same time.
Yeah. And
we set up, just a couple headsets, very basic games, Beat Saber, Space Pirate Trainer, like just the OGs that we loved. And I remember like after we did about 5 or 6 sessions, like talking to the camp leader and saying like, so like how do you think that went like in comparison to like other things they're doing? They're like, are you kidding me? I've never seen the kids like pay attention to something for so long, even when they were in the headset. Because we had a screen showing what the other person was doing at the same time. They're cheering each other on. They're politely waiting in line. So it just like the first time I went through, the engagement level is just through the roof when
Absolutely.
it comes to VR, right? So yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. And Evan, you sparked something in me. I was thinking, how has the advancement recently in AI and maybe even ChatGPT in particular affected the way you guys are doing business, whether it be through software or even just the actual business side of things?
Yeah, like on the software side of things, we've been working with Georgian College for almost 8 months now, I guess, with ChatGPT, like earlier versions, and obviously it's improving, so that's amazing for us too, to bring virtual avatars that you can have a real conversation with. So like right now we have an avatar and it's like a conversation tree, so you walk up to them and they say, hello, how are you? And then you have 4 options or however many options that you can respond with, and then you follow that like branch of the tree. But now with AI, you walk up, they say, hello, how are you? You just respond, being like, good, how are you? And then you can have a conversation. So that's something we're trying to work on, and it's not there yet, but that's on the software side. The business side of things, like, I think it can definitely be bad and be frowned upon in certain areas, but especially or looking at us as a startup, it's like we're trying to grow fast and trying to like stretch our budget as far as possible. So with our marketing and sales team, we have a head of marketing and head of sales. Working with them, we're looking at like how can we build out a marketing and sales team without building out a marketing and sales team. So it looks like, and we're doing a bunch of tests right now and over the past month, but it looks like with all the tools out there, including ChatGPT, we could have like what is almost like a 10-person marketing and sales team with just the 3 of us. And so
That's incredible.
Yeah, pretty exciting on that end.
That is really exciting. Wow. Good stuff. And I think, I think we had a conference up at the Link about AI and ChatGPT in general, and there was 2 professors that led it, and there's kind of 2 schools of thought they had. That one was, oh yeah, we have to integrate this and think about how it's going to work, and it's just like any other advancement. And the other is, it's not like any other advancement, it's a huge one, and it could actually limit the way that we function in the future, because it'll take away some of like the necessary processing that we put through now. And it was just so overwhelming. I thought I left that feeling so like I don't know what to think, and it's really crazy. And I think VR and AI and everything like that coming together is really just making everyone feel like they live in the future. But I don't know, all this advancement, it's scary, but at the same time it's really exciting. I don't know how you guys feel about that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an old school way of thinking. You know, if the robots are going to take over, I want to be one of the creators. You know, so they take some mercy on me along the way. So, like you just gotta keep up the best you can, because things are going to move quickly, and you know, you fall off one social media platform, like myself with TikTok. I'm like, I don't know how this thing works, because I didn't hop on right away and I didn't care for it, right? And then now you see the impact that it has with the viewership and the amount content creators are making, posting videos on TikTok versus the traditional, you know, Instagram, YouTube revenue streams that came in the past, right? So yeah, I think you just got to stay on top of it best you can. That's really all you can do, right?
Yeah, it's coming, so you got to be there. And a comment that I made to our head of sales, we were chatting about this, is like, we still have mailmen today. And so like there's a lot of jobs that I think we can point to that it's like email and some of the technology we have today should technically replace all mailmen in the world, or at least in North America, but they're still out there. So it's like there's so many jobs that like, yeah, there's technology that's been around for 30 plus years that could replace those people, but they're still here. So it's like, the technology's moving really quickly. The world's going to move kind of slow to adopt it like fully, and people just have to adapt as it happens. And I don't know, there could be some concerns. I'm very interested in where the world could head with like universal basic income and those sorts of topics around what if AI took over all jobs.
Absolutely.
But it is a scary future when you start talking about that, and capitalism might.
Well, yeah, and I think we're a long way out, you know, from like mass adoption even of VR itself, because like you know, people think, oh, like VR has been around for 5 years. Nah, it's been around a lot longer than that. You know, like we've talked to guys that have been in, you know, big container virtual sims in like the 90s, right? There was a Nintendo Virtual Boy was one of the first like VR gaming consoles, where it just kind of slid in and you held it up to your face like this, and it was just like green on like a black screen.
Oh, no way.
That kind of playing, you know? And like, so like even when we got into it, like we thought we were like, oh shit, this is shiny new technology.
Yeah.
You talk to actual like VR buffs, like they're like, no, this has been around forever. It's finally like introductory mainstream. Like we have early adopters at a price point that like in your house you can have a VR headset, right? Like, you know, Apple wanted to have everyone have a personal computer in their house at some point. And it took a long time for that to happen, but it did happen eventually, right?
Yep.
So like our thought, and we're like tying it back to education, is like just how every university student is expected to have a laptop for university today. We think, 10 to 15 years, students are coming to campus with their VR headset, or they're sitting at home using. It's mandatory to have. It's not like this extra thing that's new, but when everything else catches up from like a software perspective, like we can do it all in virtual reality. Wow. Just like we threw out textbooks and now only use our laptops.
It's true. Yeah, it's just the progression. Mm-hmm. So how would that work? Like you bring your VR headset to lecture and you see everything happening around you. Say you're like a biology student, and rather than the processes being on the board, you're like, oh, this is like a vein that I'm in right now and I'm looking at it.
100%. And that technology already exists, just not on the mass consumer level.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the big adoption, like Drew saying, like it's mandatory to have, and definitely will be mandatory to have, but like everyone will just have it anyways, because it's the correlation or the combination of augmented reality with virtual reality, where that's where Apple will probably be heading when they announce their headset. That's where Meta has been heading as well. So it's like it will be a pair of glasses that's going to replace your phone, your laptop, every screen you have, and it's going to be something you use in your daily life. And then you'll go to school and you'll install the school applications onto your headset and be able to use them. So
that's almost like a Neuralink kind of
direction.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like.
We're about one step before that, but yeah.
Before it's actually implemented into your brain. Yeah. When I first heard about that blew me away. The whole like, oh yeah, we're going to start off with medical issues and then slowly transition it into this could just be like a daily thing. That, I don't know if you guys know too much about that or followed up on that.
Yeah, I've been following, I used to be a big fan of Elon Musk, now I'm less so, but so I've been following it, and very, very interesting. I think it goes back to same with AI, there is that worry that if only people that have a lot of wealth get these installed, and now mm-hmm. they have 10, 20, 100 times the brain power technically that everyone else has, then there could be a big discrepancy there. So that's my only worry, I guess, with
just
that.
Actual mega minds.
Yes, exactly.
No, but yeah, it would just produce a huge gap between. I remember I brought this up to one of my marketing professors because he was doing work that was along that field. It was kind of a goofy class. It was, for some reason, only about 5 people showed up to this one. Oh. And it was like, it felt like almost like a private school where it's just like you and the professor, and we were just having a conversation. I told him about Neuralink, and it completely derailed the entire lesson. And we ended up just talking about it. He's like, what is that? And then the video of, there's like a monkey, he's playing a game by blowing in a tube. Yeah. So he's playing Pong, and it's somehow controlled through Neuralink. Blew my professor away. So I think stuff like that getting out there can really just kind of spark someone's interest, and maybe that's how innovation goes. That's how you guys got into it. That's how more people are finding out about this every day. And I love all that stuff. I think it's super interesting. Getting into that, I wanted to actually touch more on some of your inspirations. So I heard you talk about Casey Neistat as an early inspiration and just the internet in general. How do you think that has inspired you guys to kind of push forward and see the vision of your company go through, just as, kind of YouTube took off, different content creators, and people individually taking it from a large scale to a smaller scale into their own hands? Has any of that had an impact on the way you do business?
I think for me, it's like the education aspect has been the biggest part, and just having unlimited access to any education of like learning about marketing or accounting or whatever, mm-hmm. and that being on the internet's been like the biggest piece. On the inspiration side of things beyond education, I think for me, it's just seeing that there are people from every walk of life and from every background that have been successful. So it's like if somebody that grew up in like the slums somewhere and was able to like go and now become a millionaire and become well recognized and give back to their community and do all these amazing things, it's like, well, I'm just a white guy in Canada that has access to so many more resources. So that's where I'm inspired, seeing like people that have been able to do that, and they were able to do that because of the internet and not needing to have all of the resources of a huge company that would regularly be needed like 100 years ago or 50 years ago.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you guys are doing is very commendable, because a lot of people wouldn't want to take that risk. You definitely had the opportunity to have maybe some nice, cushier, easier pathways out of university. But I think as someone who's, ending university myself and going into the workforce, it's very inspiring to see that you guys have done something like this, because I think a lot of people are meant to do something like that. But I see it as, if you didn't try, you'll never know. So I think you guys embody that to the max. So yeah, I really appreciate that you guys have come on today, and appreciate you guys doing everything that you do. So thank you very much, and yeah, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for
No
having us.
problem. Okay.